Final thoughts on the Whitehorse Community Asset Map project include a reflection on contemporary pedagogy and politics, which led me to title this reflection, In Defense of Being Dangerous. What the apostles of neoliberalism have learned is that this art and science of education can be dangerous and can not only create critically engaged students, intellectuals, and artists, but can expand the capacity of the imagination to think otherwise in order to act otherwise, hold power accountable, and imagine the unimaginable. So, I choose to be dangerous. Reclaiming pedagogy as a form of educated hope begins with the crucial recognition that education is not just about job training and product production, but also about matters of civic engagement, critical thinking, civic literacy, and the capacity for democratic agency, action, and change. It is also connected to the issues of power, inclusion, and social responsibility. This project involved three main components. First, bringing 24 Student Council scholars on board as co-teachers. Secondly, developing socially, culturally relevant written and visual maps. And finally, engaging the larger community by exploring the questions, what is empathy? How do we learn? What is community? What is a needs-based versus an assets-based approach? How do you map a community? Honing an idea involves drawing associations, reorganizing understandings, and working through emotions. While working to deepen my own understanding of community asset mapping, I stumbled upon mapping empathy. It involved creating a class empathy map, followed by a school-wide empathy mapping process. The importance of this exploration cannot be overemphasized because empathy and compassion contribute to the creation of an environment beneficial for learning and overall physical and mental well-being. In essence, the empathy mapping set a foundation for the community asset mapping to follow. Refusing to separate politics from pedagogy means that teaching should not simply honor the experiences people bring to such sites, but should also connect experiences to problems that come from everyday life. This view of pedagogy does not mold but inspires, directs, and is capable of imagining a better world and the need to reimagine a democracy that is never finished. With that in mind, the Community Asset Map project felt like the place to start in order to understand where we are as a community before we start making determinations about what is needed. So the next part was really taking a look at a needs-based approach versus an assets-based approach. San Juan County is the poorest county in Utah and one of the 30 poorest in the United States. Needs-based thinking is endemic and is the predominating approach to charitable and institutional work in the region. So, to flip what has been a well-established methodology over to asset-based thinking has been hugely beneficial to this project. In fact, Student Council scholars and other stakeholders recognize the more hopeful, positive aspects of an assets-based approach and have committed to its application in the mapping process. Anyone can be a hero anytime an opportunity arises to stand up for what is right and just, and to speak out against injustice, corruption, and other evils. With that said, I humbly present my heroes. Whitehorse Student Council co-teachers have been absolutely amazing in the implementation of this project. It started with their understanding of the empathy mapping process and carrying that into the individual asset mapping, which they carried out with their Whitehorse peers. Simultaneously, they started development of the large visual maps to accompany the written maps. Once they had mapped about 150 of the Whitehorse scholars, they were able to take that information and break it into areas of strengths. Examples include artistic, willing to share knowledge, motivates others. They also realized that a much larger visual piece was needed, so the visual map expanded from the single yay to a pair of yays, male and female, representing a real balance, along with additional protection figures which actually have the individual asset maps being sewn onto them. They also went beyond the Whitehorse High School walls and started mapping the wider community. For example, you see where they are mapping individuals during Aneth Justice Day. Aneth is a feeder community to the Whitehorse High School. In evaluating the entire process, some thoughts. Student council co-teachers have led implementation throughout the project, and the visual map itself is very impactful, and so those have been highly effective areas throughout the process. I feel we're at an effective point in our mapping process with 72% of Whitehorse scholars being mapped. The majority of the Whitehorse High School staff have been mapped, and now scholars are working on the wider community and starting to move out into groups and the larger institutions. An emerging effective component really has to do with the education of people about the mapping process and what the map itself is finally all about. Flexibility was also needed to revise the visual map based on co-teacher input. What is minimally effective at this time, really there are three aspects. Because culturally appropriate imagery is being used, it does require that the visual map be put away while it's being made during the non-storytelling season. So there's some timing issues that are part of this project, which also tie in to student council members, their availability, because they have many other responsibilities beyond just the mapping process. So truly, I don't believe we will fully know the full impact of mapping for perhaps even several years. Finally, there's some references in regards to some of the current thinking on pedagogy. I thank you for joining me in this journey with the Whitehorse Community Asset Map in defense of being dangerous.